What's this you say? A podcast of a Monday from me? Crazy. A little off schedule. But the only reason I'm doing it is because this is going to be entirely Formula 1 based. Because it was quite a significant weekend of Formula 1 that just passed. I'm doing it walking out and about because it's an incredibly lovely day. The last time I got out of my van, it said it was 23 degrees. There's not a cloud in the sky. The sun is bearing down on me. It's October 9th, and I had to apply sun cream. Strange times we are living in. It's very disconcerting walking around with leaves falling from the trees and midsummer heat. There you go. Global warming. I'm currently walking down the Greenway, the Dodder Greenway. That is not far from my house. Excuse me, I'm burping. I'm not long after my lunch again. I have to stop eating before recording this stuff. It's in case you hear any nature sounds in the background. That's why. I'm going. It's a bit of a juxtaposition. A podcast about cars and motorsport. And then I'm embraced by nature and climate change. I don't know. I'm rambling already. This is going to be Formula 1 based only. And I wanted to get it out there because there's quite a lot to talk about from the weekend just gone. So obviously, credit where credit's due. Just to begin with, Max Verstappen won his third World Championship, third in a row. Obviously a foregone conclusion for several months now, really. Although, never say never. Look at Danny Rick. Had a pretty innocuous accident in Zandvoort, and he's been out for 5 races now. So look, anything can happen in the world of Formula 1, but for all intents and purposes, we all knew Max Verstappen was going to wrap up the title early this year and in convincing fashion, and that's exactly what he did. Credit where credit's due. It's an incredible performance. People will bemoan that it's dull and unpredictable, but as time passes, we'll more and more appreciate what he and Red Bull are doing. It's incredible. And obviously three World Championships is rarefied ground. There hasn't been many. There have been I discussed this last time. So it's been Fangio, Prost, Senna, Schumacher, Vettel, Hamilton. So 6. So he's the 7th person to win 3 titles. Obviously, several of those drivers went on to win more. I left out Fangio last time I said this. So obviously Fangio was the first person to do 3 in a row, and again won 4 in a row in the end, and 5 in total. But Fangio, I think Fangio, Schumacher, Vettel, and Hamilton are the only 4, and now Max. So 5 out of those 7 actually win 3 on the trot. Prost won 4, but they were disjointed over several different years, and Senna's were over a couple of different years as well. Anyway, incredible achievement, and there's no denying it. Not the ultimate perfect weekend for Max. He qualified 3rd for the sprint race, and he finished 2nd. But the main race itself, he started from pole, led from the beginning, managed his pace, and won convincingly, fastest lap, which is a great way because he won the championship on the Saturday. He only needed to score 3 points. So sorry if this is the background noise now. I'm walking past the weir along the Dodder, so there's lots of rushing water in the background. Hopefully that's not too distracting. It's hard to tell with these recordings what gets picked up and what doesn't. This microphone's pretty decent at blocking out background noise. Anyway, stop getting off topic. I'm just trying to kill some time as I walk by the weir because it is quite loud, and I'm conscious that it is drowning out what I'm saying, which is probably for the best, says you. What was I talking about? Formula 1. Yeah, so he actually won the championship on the Saturday in the sprint race because he only needed to score 3 points. 3 points no matter what Perez did. He was currently second in the championship. I think he still is, even though he's had an abysmal weekend this weekend, so maybe he got jumped, but I don't think so. And yeah, so strange. Definitely, as far as like, I don't think there's been anyone else in history to win a world championship on a Saturday. Because obviously the sprint race is a pretty new phenomenon. So I can't imagine there was any reason why anyone else would have done it in the past. So that was strange. And I watched the sprint race on my phone with no sound in the pub because the Ireland and Scotland rugby game was on, and we booked a table and we had to be there for 6:30, which is when the sprint race started. To secure the table we booked. Not that matters, but yeah, so the sprint race I only kind of half watched because for the reasons I just outlined. But yeah, I know it was a foregone conclusion, but I don't know. As I said, we'll appreciate it as time goes on, but it certainly was quite anticlimactic. Even Max didn't seem particularly overly excited at the fact that he won his third championship in a row. Obviously, it does mean a lot to him, and he's a winning machine. Just goes to show, like, the next day he went on and dominated the race, despite the fact he could have just went home technically, because they've already got the constructors championship and everything. But he wanted to win again, and he wants to win all the rest of the races for the rest of the season. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, he's been quite vocal about saying he wants to try other forms of motorsport, most notably endurance racing and GT racing, sports cars, etc. And he wants to do it while he's still in his prime. Now he's only 26, so he has plenty of time. But and he's contracted. I think he's contracted until the end of 2027, so 2028, with Red Bull, as far as I'm aware. But even at that, so that's what. So 4, 5, 6, 7. So 4 more seasons. So he could. It must be 28 as well, because I think they were saying that, like, he could go all out and get 8 championships if he was to win. So yeah, it must include 28, because that'd be 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, which 5 more, and he has 3. So yeah. So that's what, 5 years, 26. Sorry, my math's terrible. So he'd be 31 at the end of that. And so therefore he could step away as the greatest Formula 1 driver of all time, assuming Red Bull nail the next set of regulations, which is due in 2026. Step away as the most successful Formula 1 driver of all time. Again, I know I'm making a lot of assumptions here. A lot can happen in 5 years in Formula 1, but let's just assume at the age of 31, and then, you know, take a couple of years, do Le Mans, probably win that, and do other things, 24 hours in Nürburgring, all sorts of other things, maybe Dakar, whatever. And then, like, you could do 2, even 3 years and still be in his early to mid 30s. He can make a return to Formula 1 and try and win some more and really push out the boundaries of what a Formula 1 driver can and has achieved. Because that's the only thing I could think of that would be, I don't want to say a blot on his record, because look, he's already proven he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest there's ever been. But for him to win with another team would be interesting, because, you know, like what Schumacher did in '96, going to an ailing Ferrari and then bringing them back, and then obviously going on to the run dominance after he had his back-to-back championships with Benetton. You know, that makes him a bit of a great. You know, Lewis going from McLaren to Mercedes at the time was such a shock move, but, like, you know, he proved that. Obviously, you know, Prost, his last championship was a bit of a walk in the park with Williams, but he still did it with 2 different teams. Senna's obviously a bit of an anomaly. We don't really know where his career would have went ultimately, tragically. But yeah, it'd be nice to see him to do something with another team, because like, you know, I mean, people kind of look back at Vettel's for. Look, and I'm a big Vettel fan, and he's clearly a great racing driver. But it was the team and the car were clearly a very big factor in his championship success. Obviously he did give it a go with Ferrari, and there was a bit of a 50-50 split as to why he and Ferrari didn't succeed. But it just long story short, what I'm going to say is it'd be great for Max. I don't think he's going to go anywhere else under his current contract, and I do feel he'll step away when that contract is over from Formula 1. But it's very possible that his age is on his side, that he could come back and try to achieve something else with another team. And I think that would really cement him as, and he's not quite the GOAT, as the kids say these days, yet, but he is on the right track to becoming one, and gaining success with another team outside of Red Bull would just be the absolute cherry on the icing of the cake of success. Look, just because this is about Formula 1 doesn't mean I can't ramble like I normally do. So hats off to Max and Red Bull. An incredible achievement. Other things that happened over the weekend. So there was the issue with the tyres. So now everyone loves tyre chat, and I'll try and be as not boring as I can be talking about tyres and technical stuff like this. But after the sprint race? No, it was after this, or was it after quali, or was it after the sprint? It's so much going on over the weekend. But anyway, after one of the sessions, I think it must have been after the sprint race. Was it? Anyway, Pirelli inspected the tyres after. Yeah, it must have been after the sprint race, because it was. No, it was after free practice. Yeah, it was after free practice 1. They inspected the tyres and noticed there was a delamination of the cords from the sidewalls hitting the new kind of jagged curbs that they'd installed at Qatar, Lusail circuit, and they had a bit of a safety concern. So they made adjustments to the track, and then they gave, again, something that's out of kilter for a normal weekend. They gave the drivers a 10-minute familiarization session, as they put it, before the sprint race itself, to test out the new track limits and the new curbs that they installed. So they did that, and then they had the sprint race, which was interesting enough. I'll get back to that in a moment. But then after the sprint race, they checked the tyres again, and the decision was made on Sunday morning that on safety grounds they wouldn't allow anyone to do any more than 18 laps on any given tyre, which meant we knew when people were going to pit, pretty much, maybe a lap here or there, or let's say here or there, maybe a lap early or two than what they were required. No one was allowed to go over the deal limit. Was 18 laps, to say, on a set of tyres, which it was very hard to. How do I feel about the whole thing? It was interesting in a sense because it was it's an anomaly. It was something different that we've never seen before. Mandated pit stops, and it meant that there had to be, with 18 laps being the maximum you could do on a set of tyres, it meant a minimum of a 3-stop strategy for everyone. Some people went on to do 4, because they took into account, because the allocation of tyres everyone had, used tyres had to be a factor at some point. So like any laps that had been done on the used tyres was taken into account on the maximum of 18 they could do on them. So some people did have to do 4 stops. So knowing when people were going to stop was strange. It also caused a lot of confusion with people who were on 3, people who were on 4, and people starting on used and people on new tyres. There was a lot of chaos as to where everyone was throughout the race. It took a while for it all to settle down and really understand where people were. But one of the, I suppose, unforeseen, what's the word I'm looking for? Unforeseen We're seeing. Brain's gone blank now. We should be top quality content. This one of the unforeseen circumstances, I suppose, the word I'm looking for, of this mandated number of laps they could do in the tyres was they were pitting way before the degradation limit of the tyre would kick in. So they were all flat out, which is flat out is great. We want to see the drivers flat out all the time. It's one of the criticisms that's been labelled of Formula 1 over the last decade or so, especially with these Pirelli tyres, is that there's a lot of tyre management involved because of the degradation of the tyres. But because they were pitting much earlier than the degradation limit of the tyre, they were flat out through the whole race, and they were in Qatar it's 25 degrees in Dublin at the moment, so I think air temperature at night in Qatar there was 35 degrees, and apparently that increased to like 52 in the cockpit, and humidity was at something like 98%. So a lot of the three drivers on the podium, which was Max, Oscar and Lando. Lando, to be fair to him, didn't seem too exhausted, although he was pumping sweat as everyone was. But Max, even, who was kind of managing his pace out front, and Max and Oscar had to sit down and catch their breath. Sorry, burping again. At the end of the race, and they were clearly incredibly exhausted. So that's what we saw kind of up front initially at the end of the race. But then, as the analysis unfolded post race, several of the drivers had to go to the medical centre. Logan Sargent actually had to stop before the race was over. He was feeling so unwell from the heat. If you go online, you'll see there's videos of Alex Albon and Lance Stroll getting out of their cars. Albon had to be helped out by his mechanics, and Lance struggled to get out of the car, and then he stumbled over towards an ambulance. Ocon said he threw up in the car. Stroll was saying as well, in the high speed corners he was starting to black out. And then there was several others who went to the medical centre and stuff. They were at a very, very hot climate race, but this forced tyre thing exemplified the heat and humidity, because they've, as Oscar put it, they essentially did 57 qualifying laps. So yeah, lessons learned, I think, from this weekend. Bradley said it very much will be a one-off, because these curbs have never been used before and aren't used at any other track, and I'm sure the FIA will ensure that these curbs are never used again anywhere to avoid this happening. And I'm sure Pirelli will have a look at the tyre construction, so something like this can't happen again. But it was, these are elite athletes, and it's from an entertainment and spectator point of view, it's admirable to see these athletes, absolutely at their pretty much wits' end, showing how hard they had to work and battle at this top level sport. Because I think that's one of the things that new fans and armchair fans don't realise, or even people who don't watch Formula 1 don't realise, that it is an incredibly physical sport. The G-forces and the heat and all that jazz. It really does take a lot. Takes a lot out of the drivers, and this was probably one of the most glaring visual realizations of that. My good old rambling is top notch today. That was one of the other key highlights. Stuff in the race. So at the very beginning, I'll talk about. I don't take everything I say about the sprint race with a pinch of salt, instead I watched it in the pub. But hats off to Oscar Piastri. He because the McLarens locked out the front row for the sprint race, and fair play to Oscar. He took the lead at the beginning, he was on the medium tyres, and then he and Lando were both in the mediums. Lando had a bit of a stink of a start. He dropped back a bit. So he was on the. They were on the mediums. Then third, fourth, and fifth was Russell, Sainz, and Leclerc. They all started on the softs, so they got good launches. And so eventually, like, there was a safety car in the first lap because Lawson spun out, put it in the gravel. And on the restart, then George managed to get Oscar and overtake him. And then there was another safety car when Logan Sargent put it into the gravel. And he caught Oscar napping on the restart. And he took off and built himself up a bit of a lead. But then the soft tyre started to drop off, and Oscar managed to catch Russell and overtake him pretty easily. And then after that, he kind of held his own. Max had a bit of a stink of a start as well. Where did Max start, actually? Max must have been third, actually. Yeah, maybe Max was third for it. But he had a bit of a stink of a start and dropped back a bit. But he was on the mediums as well, and he eventually got past, must have been Russell. Yeah, and once he got past Russell, he might have caught Piastri, but he didn't. Piastri managed to hang on. Max finished second. Lando was third in the sprint. I took down the full. It's one thing I did write down is the results of the races. So it was Oscar first. So his first win. There's debate. Does that considered a race win? Is it not? I'm giving it to him. Even he himself says, it's a strange, bittersweet feeling. Because it's a victory, but it's not a race victory, it's a sprint victory. Whatever, fair play to him. Got to dent the confidence of Lando a little bit. Sorry, I'm out by the road now, so there's probably going to be road noise and diesel truck engines disturbing things. Because he had a bit of a scruffy weekend. There's no denying Oscar overall outperformed Lando this weekend, although Lando was very quick in the race. More on that in a moment, but technically to take the first win of the two of them, that's got to dent Lando's confidence a little bit, and he was very harsh on himself, Lando, this weekend. The reason Oscar out-qualified him in the race is because Lando made a bit of a mistake on his final flyer in the final corner, went wide, and then they both got 5-second penalties for the main qualifying for the race. So they started the main race in 6th and 10th because for track limits. And again, Lando was very harsh himself. He knew he breached track limits even before it was announced. But anyway, so the results for the sprint race: Oscar, Max, Lando, George Russell, Lewis, Sainz, Alonso, Albon, which is good, a couple of points for Albon. Gasly in the last points position in the sprint. Then it was Bottas, Tsunoda, Leclerc. I can't remember what happened to Leclerc that he was so far down. Magnussen, well, he started on the softs, which definitely wasn't the way to go. But Sainz was much further up. I can't remember why Leclerc was so far down in the sprint. Magnussen, Zhou, Stroll, and then DNF for Nico Hülkenberg, Ocon and Perez. The three of them came together. I brought out a third safety car in the race. So it was kind of a racing incident, but it was 3-1, didn't go. Hülkenberg was trying to pass Perez, and then Ocon was on the outside. Ocon didn't realise Perez was on the inside of Nico. Nico did try to back out of it, but he was pincered by both Perez and Ocon, and then Ocon tagged Hülkenberg, and Hülkenberg spun into Perez, and then it was Ocon and Perez who went into the gravel. I think Hülkenberg was able to continue, but then they had to retire the car because there was too much damage. Sargent had that DNF because he spun off, and so did Lawson. That was the sprint. The main race, so I obviously talked about Max cruising to victory. Oscar, second podium for him, again because he had a clean start, It was helped by the fact that the two Mercedes came together in the opening lap, fighting a bit too harder than they should have been, and it was Hamilton tagged the rear left of George, trying to go around the outside of him into turn one. They were both, giving it over the radio, as you kind of would expect. As much as I can't like George Russell, it was clearly Lewis Hamilton's fault. And to be fair to Lewis, once he got out of the car and he reviewed the thing, he was straight away threw his hands up and took responsibility for that one. Again, as I said previously, Lewis is obviously an incredible racing driver. The record books show he is an amazing and well-deserving world champion, but I have questioned before his wheel-to-wheel combat. I think it's partly because he's had a lot of time out in front by himself, but I don't think he's the best at wheel-to-wheel racing. He's had a lot of comings together when he has gone wheel-to-wheel with other racers, and often with teammates, which doesn't help. But anyway, yeah. So Oscar was kind of the winner from that, because he started 6th, had a decent start, got by the two Ferraris and so was, and then when the two Mercedes took each other out, he took advantage of that. Norris came back through, that's why I was saying he had a very good race. Started 10th, managed to finish 3rd. He was catching Oscar at the end as well, but the team told him to hold station, which he did question, but he did stick to his guns and stayed behind Oscar. And he was delighted at the end of the race. He's wise enough to know that starting 10th and finishing 3rd is still a great result, and it's a great result for the team. Another double podium, they're 3rd in a row now, which is pretty impressive. McLaren are really in a row. They're only 11 points behind Aston Martin now for 4th. So it seems like it's almost a bit of a foregone conclusion now that McLaren are going to take 4th in the championship from Aston, which, as I've mentioned previously, that's Aston will in part they'll be happy that they got 5th, because it's an improvement on the last couple of seasons that they had, but at the same time they begun the season the second quickest car. They were second in the championship entirely because of Fernando Alonso. We'll talk about Stroll in a moment. Sorry, burping again. But yeah, to drop off that much is pretty bad. Mercedes, Ferrari, and most notably McLaren have made such leaps and gains, and they've dropped back. It's not a good look. So yeah, again, bittersweet for them finishing 5th, an improvement, but I don't know. This year held so much more promise for them. But yeah, if McLaren had started off the season as well as the second half's gone for them, they'd probably be a clear 4th, or maybe even 3rd at this point, or even 2nd maybe. But the start of the year wasn't great for them. So where was I? Yeah, so the crash at the start between the two Mercs was almost a gift-wrapped present for Ferrari, because Ferrari and Mercedes are now locked in a battle to the end of the season for 2nd in the Constructors' Championship. But even before the race started, Carlos Sainz was ruled out because they discovered a fuel pressure leak or something to do with the fuel system anyway on his car that couldn't be fixed in time for the race, so he did not even start. So that was going to be a bad day at the office for Ferrari, because with the Mercs starting 3rd and 4th, it looked like they were going to score a substantial amount of points ahead of Ferrari. So when the two of them tangled at the start, it looked like it was going to be amazing. So all Leclerc needed to do was get a decent points finish, and they would have taken a decent dent out of Mercedes. However, Russell did manage to continue after that tangle with Lewis, and he finished 4th in the end, just ahead of Leclerc. So they did score. What's that? 4th gets you 12 points, I think, isn't it? 12. And you get 10 for 5th, so I think they've marginally increased their lead. I'd have to go through Mercedes scored more points in the sprint as well, but can't even remember how sprint points are divided now. It's like 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, is it? Something like that. So I'll have to double check. I should have written down the championship standings, but I haven't. But anyway, it's still quite tight between Mercedes and Ferrari for second anyway. So there's 5 races to go. So between that battle for second, and the battle for fourth, between Aston and McLaren, are two interesting tales for the rest of the season now that the main championships are wrapped up. It's hard to predict how the Ferrari and Mercedes one is going to go, because they do seem to fluctuate from track to track. Now, if history is to repeat itself, sorry, there's a siren coming this way now. It's an ambulance. This is probably going to really ruin things. Hang on, I'll check what time I'm at so I can cut this out maybe. That's loud. Hopefully nothing too serious, but they are going pretty flat out through an urban environment, so hopefully nothing too serious there. Whatever's going on with that ambulance. I would like Ferrari to get it. Obviously I'm a diehard member of the Tifosi, but it's hard to tell. Merc are probably going to go well in Brazil and Mexico. Las Vegas is a bit of an anomaly. Circuit of the Americas could go either way for either of the teams, and then there's Abu Dhabi. So we shall see. I think the McLaren-Aston thing is a bit of a foregone conclusion. I think McLaren will get that, but the Merc and Ferrari one is a good one to look at. Alonso, he finished 6th, just behind Leclerc, so about as good as I think they could have hoped for. Alonso, it was very dusty, the track, because there's a lot of sand around Qatar. And during the safety cars in the sprint race, Alonso was cutting across to clean his grid box. Always on the ball is El Alonso. So 6th, not a bad result. All considered, the car seems to be a bit of a pig. I don't think he got any penalties, because he did go off, a rare mistake from Alonso. He went off pretty wide at, I think it was turn 2. And he came up with the escape rope, but he pulled out right in front of the clerk quite dangerously. I didn't hear of him getting any penalty. I should probably double check that. So I'll leave that with a caveat. Maybe he did get a penalty and he's dropped back further. But I don't know, because I took these results just from the F1 app just before I came out. So he has 6th. I'm surprised he didn't get a penalty. It was a very dangerous return to the track. But good results, because going back to Lance Stroll, so obviously like 90% of the points that Aston have scored this year have been by Fernando Alonso. Stroll, there's just way too many question marks now. Like his dad owns the team. Well, him and a consortium anyway own the team, and that's why he's there. Still, look, don't get me wrong, he's obviously a good driver, but he's just not a great one. And he's really been shown up by Fernando. But this weekend he had terrible qualifying for the sprint, and he let his anger be shown. He was out in Q1 for the sprint, got back to the garage, threw his very expensive steering wheel out, and then he pushed his trainer on camera, and then he gave a very sweary, disappointed interview in the pen afterwards. So he's really letting his frustration show, and it goes to show again, he finished 11th in the race, because he was in 10th, I think, but he got a 5-second penalty for track limits, which dropped him down to 11th. So again, no points scored by Lance Stroll. He finished last of the cars that ran in the sprint, and then 11th in the race. And his teammate managed to pull 6th out of the bag. So not great for El Stroll. Question marks. How much longer can Daddy allow him to stay in the team? Ocon 7th, not bad considering the Alpine very much being the 6th fastest team, and after the disaster of the crash he had in the sprint race, not a bad result for Ocon and Alpine there. And then 8th and 9th, Bottas and Zhou, the first time all season both the Alfa Romeo Saubers have been in the points, so they'll have to be pretty delighted with that. Zhou kind of somewhat benefited from the fact that in 9th was Perez was 9th, but Perez also got track limit penalty, which dropped him back. So that's how kind of Joe got into the points, but it's a result nonetheless. But Perez, so as discussed previously, Perez is having a nightmare of a season since Miami, where he got absolutely trounced by Max. It's just been all downhill really for Sergio. He is still second in the Driver Championship, which, to be fair to him, if he can manage to stay there, it will be the first time that Red Bull have managed to have a 1-2 in the championship, which is mad when you think about it, considering the success they've had in their relatively short time in Formula 1. Sorry, burping yet again. Tastes like tuna, because I had tuna for lunch. But yeah, like he managed to get 10, so he did manage to score a point. But when your crowned world champion teammate wins comfortably, and you crash out of the sprint race, and you qualify terribly, it's getting he's on tenterhooks is Perez. The team have said he's safe for next year. You know, he will be in the race car, but I don't know, you can never tell with Red Bull. The fact that Danny Rick's taking so long to return to the Toro Rosso, Freudian slip there, the AlphaTauri. I think maybe they want him to get properly recuperated. He will be back this season for sure in the AlphaTauri, but they're not rushing him back because they want him to get back up to full health and strength, because I think they might put Danny Rick in the second Red Bull next year, because I think they know him and Max will work well together. They have the data. They probably know he's, like for like, possibly quicker than Perez. And I think at this stage in his career, I think Danny would be happy enough, not necessarily to be a on paper absolute number 2 driver to Max, but he will play the team game, allow Max to do his thing, and if there is opportunities to be taken when Max isn't on form or has bad luck or whatever, or maybe let's not rule out Danny is the last person to actually outright compete and beat Max. Max was much earlier in his career at that point. It's nothing to say that maybe Danny could get into the Red Bull and actually compete and beat Max, although that'd be some achievement. But I feel maybe like they might slide Danny Rick in there now for next year. We'll get a surprise announcement over the winter break, and they'll put Lawson in the other AlphaTauri, because he well deserved it. Although he didn't have a great race in Qatar, he has been putting in the work while he's been replacing Danny Rick. So he definitely deserves a chance on the grid next year. And I think Perez has had more than an opportunity to try and right his wrongs, but the performance disparity between him and Max is pretty glaring. Now, saying that, maybe no one will be close to Max at all. Maybe Max is that good, but I really think the team need to find out for sure by putting someone else in the car, because while they've run away with it this year, it's not to say that will continue. McLaren are certainly on song, and there's nothing to say that Ferrari and Mercedes and even Aston could join that run of improvement next year. So yeah, we shall see. I'll start wrapping this up soon, because I'm, as ever, talking absolute bollocks. Stroll, as I talked about. Gasly, again, messy race. Ocon managed to get points for 7th. Gasly was very kind of over ambitious with some of his overtakes. He overtook Perez, was one of them, and who else was the other one that he tried to overtake off the track? Must have been, it was either Bottas, I think it was Bottas or Joe, one of the Alfa Romeos. Overtook off the track, and he was kind of pretty reluctant to give the place back, and so he got penalties then as well for breaching track limits, so that's what dropped him out. He was out of the points, and then he dropped him down. into 12th overall. So not a great weekend for Gasly. Where did he finish in the sprint? Where is he there? Well, he finished 9th in the sprint, so he didn't even score any points in the sprint race. So yes, another great weekend for Gasly. Albon was 13th. Again, there's the with everyone going flat out. He's great at tyre management, is Albon, but he wasn't able to use that tool in his arsenal because everyone was going flat out. Tyre management wasn't really a thing, and the heat stroke really seemed to get to him. As the onboard footage showed him, he really struggled to get out of his car. So 13 was the best that Albon could manage. Magnussen 14th, again, just no pace in the Haas again. Well, everyone was going flat out. Snowed at 15th. I'm not too sure why. Again, it must have been a pace thing because Lawson was 17th and last of the runners. Just no pace in the AlphaTauri this weekend. And then Hulkenberg was 16th. Again, same thing as Magnussen. No pace in the car. There's an ambulance going the other direction now. I'll try and cut out those sirens, assuming that they ruin the audible pleasure of this podcast. And then, so Sergeant DNF, he voluntarily stopped because he wasn't feeling well, which must have been a tough decision for him to make. But he obviously wasn't able to continue, and just another blow from him in what's been a very difficult season. It'd be surprising if Williams give him another go next year. James Vels has been very what's the word I'm looking for? He has put his arm around Sargent and given him the benefit of the doubt and given him time, but in this competitive world of Formula 1, can he really justify another season? I know the Liberty Media, I think, would really like to have an American on the grid, but at the end of the day, there are some great racing drivers out there, and I don't know how big Sargent's fan base is, even in his home territory. So maybe that's, if Perez does get dropped, going to Williams might not be a terrible move for him to make, assuming he stayed in Formula 1, which I think he would. Hamilton DNF obviously in that crash at the start with his teammate Russell, and Sainz didn't start the race at all. So that's it. I'm sure there's other things I'm forgetting about that happened, because it was a very hectic weekend. But fair play again to Max Verstappen and Red Bull. Incredible. Hopefully we don't have any more drama with the tyres. There were elements of it that added some excitement, something different, and it was great to see drivers going flat out for the whole race. But overall, we don't want to see that crack again. And so the next race is Circuit of the Americas in Austin, so another nice evening race, because Qatar was on there at 6 o'clock, which is nice. I do like an evening race. There's only one early morning one left, which will be Las Vegas, because it's on at 9 p.m. local time for them, which means it'll be on, I think, at 6 a.m. for us over here. Circuit of the Americas next in 2 weeks' time. I won't talk too much about that because I'll save that for the week. It's we have a 2 week gap, so I'll talk about that nearer the time. I probably will return later in the week with just a normal Kari podcast, because as I said, I've talked for nearly 45 minutes about Formula 1. So if I manage to do that in the regular podcast, it will be about fucking 2 hours long, and no one wants to listen to me talk that much bollocks for that amount of time. So anyway, if you haven't listened to this one, as always, I love you, and until next time, be safe, be well. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.